Welcome to Coffee Break with Rachel V. Hill, presented by Superbook Sports. Taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel V. Hill.
Happy Thursday, everybody. It's a Thursday that feels like a Friday, and I'm not sure how I feel about it, but all I do know is that Richie's going to owe me an apology by the end of the show, so get ready for it, everyone.
Okay.
Richie Carney, Rachel V. I'll hang out with you for the next 35 minutes. Make sure you drop all your comments and questions in the comments bar, but good morning to everybody. We'll start with the Broncos making some transactions coming out this morning. We'll just throw up the list, actually, while we've got it right here. Quinn Bailey, Fabian Moreau, and Mike Purcell make the list to the active roster. None of these names, though, Richie, are surprising. I feel like this were some names that we were just like waiting for this to happen.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Purcell has been in this situation before, either be an injury or just where his position's out on the roster. Quinn Bailey, and we talked about this actually during training camp because there were some moments because of the offensive line rotations where Quinn Bailey was getting a good amount of run. And just talk about a guy that's just hanging on, by a thread. He's just, it's practice squad, it's call up, it's this, it's that, it's cut, it's released, it's signed back. Sun Devil, right? Former Sun Devil, forks up. But so I wouldn't say any of these names were like really surprising, but it is nice to see that those familiar faces are still making ways to contribute with this new coaching staff.
Should it be illegal that you just did the forks up signal as you're wearing a Michigan State blazer?
I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm obligated to give Arizona State a little bit of credit every now and then because in the two times in my lifetime, I believe, where Arizona State and Michigan State played, Arizona State won both of them. And I have some friends who went to that college, and so it's hard for me to really talk trash.
Okay, well, let's also just get in real quick to why we're both wearing our college gear. I have a Colorado State jacket on. Richie's obviously wearing the much more expensive and more unique blazer that I am wearing. But it's College Colors Day, so let us know where you went to college, where you attended school, and what year you graduated, because I am fascinated by all of that. What year did you graduate?
2016, because I waited a year before I went to college after high school.
Oh, no way.
Yep.
I didn't know that.
I had to work. I had to save up some money and so I spent a year and then, so I would have been I'm old enough to be a 2015 graduate, but I'm 2016.
Okay. Nice. The tease of the show. Wow, I did not know that about you, Richie, but besides the point, the tease of the show, though, was talking about how Deion Sanders absolutely annihilated the NCAA with his comments as of recently. I don't know how to get into this because it's such a touchy subject and mental health is so, so important. But essentially, and I'll let you tell it because it seems like you actually have followed the story for a little bit longer about Tyler Brown.
Yeah, so I actually was alerted of all of this. We put some pieces up on denversports.com and I also kind of in conjunction with that saw Joel Klatt on his own show have a very impassioned rant that was repurposed and shared by Deion Sanders and the university and all of that. Tyler Brown, before coming to CU, was a part of a program, and he unfortunately witnessed his coach die on the field of a heart attack, basically in front of him. And this was a coach, according to Klatt, who I was getting a lot of this context from, who Tyler was very close with. And developed kind of a bond with. And in at the college level, especially, I think we sometimes look at athletes as more of commodities or chess pieces and not 100%. As much as human beings. But in the case of college, these are kids. I mean, I remember being in college and at the start and at the beginning, and I'm so much different now than I was back then from a mental standpoint, from a maturity standpoint. Sure. So you're still very vulnerable. And so he had developed, this relationship with this person who was also his coach. They die in front of him, on the field, which would be hard in any context. And so he struggled with motivation and he ended up transferring away. The way that Joel made it sound that he wasn't even sure he wanted to continue playing because it was painful to try to get those feelings and play the sport again, given what he went through. But he ended up at Jackson State. And he found Deion and he developed that same kind of bond. And Deion, that's been one of the hallmarks for Deion in this whole thing, is that his players ride with him and for him. They will forego major scholarships at Power 5 schools to go play at Jackson State and HBCU that's on a much lower level, in terms of the competition, at least at that time. And he followed Deion to Colorado. And because of the NCAA's transfer regulations and rules and things like that. He was denied eligibility to play after a second transfer. As of now, it doesn't seem like he'll be on the field. And it's hard to talk, from his perspective, it's hard to think about that because you finally found somebody that's going to get you back doing the thing that you love. And now you're told by this governing body, which comes across very sanitized, these are the rules, we're checking a box, that you're not going to be able to do that.
And the excuse I've heard is, well, so many people use mental health as an excuse and all of these things to try and get an extra year or whatever it is. And you look at his story, Tyler's story, and you're like, clearly there's trauma there. And so Deion has the quote that's saying, are you caring when it's convenient or when it's profitable?
Correct.
And I think that's a great quote by Deion. I think he's standing up for his players. He doesn't care what the NCAA is going to say to him. He doesn't care because all he cares about is his players. And as a coach, and we can take everything aside from like what we want to see on the football field or whatever, as I'm wearing CSU gear, the fact that he cares so much about his players and he's willing to take the hard hitting stuff back from the NCAA now, that's so admirable. Yeah. I look at Coach Prime and I'm going, you have to cheer for this guy because he doesn't care what anyone else is going to say to him. He cares about the players in that locker room, and that's it.
Yeah, listen, I love my school. I love college athletics.
Yeah.
I love doing that. But I will be damned if I support or defend the NCAA in almost anything. I mean, Rachel, when you want to talk about the Mount Rushmore of villainous organizations in the world, the NCAA is on that list. I mean, you can talk about the IOC with the Olympic Committee because we hear horror stories all the time about what goes on over there. FIFA, the same thing.
Yep.
And the NCAA is right there. So I think Deion's spot on when he says, do you and I think that's something that we deal with in life just as individuals. Do you care when it's convenient or profitable, or do you care because you care?
Yeah.
And I don't disagree that there are people who use and abuse, policies and things that we have in life, like the implication that people use mental health as a scapegoat or a crutch to try to get something that they want, and it's in a disingenuous way. Sure, but does that mean to prevent those people that you're going to unilaterally remove the option for people who really are? I don't believe in that because life's not black or white. It's everything is in shades of gray. And if there's going to be a impartial kind of moderator or someone who decides what side of the line these issues fall on like more of a case-by-case basis, the NCAA, as a direct conflict of interest because they're the ones involved in it, shouldn't be a part of that. They shouldn't get to decide that if that's the case.
I know. My heart breaks for Tyler, as he said all he wants to do is suit up with his brothers and play every single Saturday. And so he'll sit out this year. So it's a touchy subject for sure, but I do have to applaud Coach Prime and for how he's handled this and for sticking up for, his university, his players against the NCAA. Because, you list off a bunch of other organizations' names and it's true. Like there's so many of them that have a profitable idea and that's the only thing that matters to them. And it's really unfortunate.
Yeah, listen, it was always this great paradox with the NCAA because, we need to hammer home that they're student athletes, right? They're students first, they're athletes second. Well, as someone who went to a major university and you did as well, and it's no secret that the student part of student athletes is taken with a very large grain of salt with most schools these days. I mean, I had classes with athletes,
so did
I. And things like that. And we watched that Johnny Manziel documentary. You think Johnny Manziel was that worried about going to class and whether or not he was going to pass his statistics exam? Give me a break. So it's always been this hypocritical paradox with the NCAA because of that. And then it's like, well, we can't pay these guys because it ruins the integrity of the sport. So we can't pay them, but we will generate tens and hundreds of millions of dollars
on their name
off the backs of these kids and give them nothing.
Yeah.
So I'm never going to allow the NCAA as a governing body to tip their nose up at me or anybody else because who are you? If you're not going to practice what you preach, then you don't get to preach.
Agreed.
In my opinion.
Agreed. And as a Ram, sure makes it a little bit harder for come Saturday for me to be like, come on TCU when I hear this stuff about Coach Prime, but we'll get to tomorrow's or Saturday's game tomorrow for sure. Did you see the Nebraska volleyball game?
So cool, and I'm so glad you're gonna bring this up.
Let's go women, first of all. This is like one of the coolest things. And if you haven't, when the show is over, don't click out of us yet. When the show is over, go look at the video footage from the Nebraska volleyball match that took place yesterday or last night. 90,000 people, I believe, were in attendance. It was crazy and such a cool environment. I can't even imagine being a part of history like that.
Yeah, unbelievable. You know, it's funny. I didn't go to college here, but I grew up here. I've lived here for the vast majority of my life, and I gotten to know fans on both sides of the CSU. I actually got accepted to CSU. That was going to be my school if I didn't end up here. But I have learned from a lot of CU faithful and CU alum, former players, and all that, the concept of like N is for knowledge, right? For Nebraska, right? But in this case, it's way more like N is for no freaking way.
Oh my
gosh. Got 90,000+ people to watch a volleyball game in an outdoor arena, which, I mean, like as someone who's spent time in my Spartan Stadium, my stadium doesn't hold 90,000 people. So like, I'm trying to think back, and I went to a lot of sold out Michigan State games. I've been to arenas that are bigger than that. That's bigger than Empower Field.
Yeah.
That's more attendance than Empower Field.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think about a sold out Broncos game or a sold out game at my Big Ten university, and then adding another 20 to 25,000 people. I can't, it had to be so cool for those students and that team.
I loved, they had like the smoke and the gates that opened for all of them as they were coming out. It was just a really, really sick environment. And I love it. It's showing like major support for women's sports. And it's so cool. Like, as a woman who is involved with sports, it's always been revolved around men. And it's so cool to see something like that, like history being made in 2023. It's just showing that we're evolving so much. It makes me so happy.
Yeah. Props to the university, props to the coaching staff, props to everybody that helped put that together. I want more of this stuff now. I want showcases. I want to see a sport that's normally played one way showcased in a football stadium, doing something big, cool, blow it up, treat it like the biggest events that we have, because it just goes to show you, if you put the time and thought and energy and effort and money into it, almost anything can generate excitement.
What's the legendary quote? I'm bad with quotes because I'm bad with movies and everything, but it's like, if you build it, they will come.
Field of Dreams.
Okay, see, I've never seen it, but I do know that quote because I truthfully believe that is the truth. If you build it, they will come. I love that. Also, Julie Ertz is retiring from the national team in women's soccer. I know. I saw that this morning too. Just a little fun fact. That's crazy. She's obviously been a legend. Married to Zach Ertz. Just so cool. Congratulations to her on an outstanding career as well. Yeah,
that's awesome, man. I very much enjoy watching frankly, I enjoy watching the women's World Cup team and that competition more than the men, because the women are so much more successful in their bracket than the men have been. And we'll see if that changes. But man, it's fun. It's been fun for years to watch that women's team with all that collection of stars really kind of showcase it on the world stage.
And then this year was just such a bummer with them being taken out so early. Richie, how are you feeling about Coach Midnight Mel?
I love Midnight Mel. Okay. It was like,
wait a damn minute.
It was almost like fate. It was poetic. I liked Mel when he was here at CU. I was a fan of it.
How can you like somebody who's so dirty?
Rachel, am I asking him to win football games, or am I taking him to meet my mom? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a line that you have to draw. I think that I'm gonna be very intrigued. I've enjoyed being kind of the villain to a lot of CU fans, because I was rooting for him with CU along with them when he was here, and then when he took that midnight train to East Lansing and all of that, I was not going to. It's one of those things where it's like the Draymond Green effect, another Michigan State thing. Everybody hates Draymond Green, right? He's kind of like, he kicks people and he's trash talky and loud or whatever. But if he was on your team, you'd like him. He has that like effect. And so now that Midnight Mel's with me, I am on that train. I'm right there in the caboose. So we'll see how he does this year. He had a great first year, and then it's kind of been hit or miss since then.
I'm feeling just like a bandwagon effect over there. I don't know how you can like somebody so dirty. That's
you just have to put it out of your mind.
Well, okay, sure, whatever. Another good story coming out of the Broncos facility yesterday was Will Lutz was obviously signed as a kicker. I've been joking and saying Sean Payton is bringing in Saints 2.0 here to Denver. But after getting to hear from Will Lutz, I really actually like the guy. He's looking for a fresh start. He was time for him to get out of New Orleans. He's looking for just this blank slate that he can do. And he talked a lot about mental health too, and that effect. So I'm excited for him. I watched him. He had some nice kicks yesterday, everybody. I'll tell you right there.
Fresh start is exactly what he needs, because he was the door jam that stopped the revolving door in New Orleans at the kicker position with Sean Payton. So that's a positive sign. He's like one of the few, if not the only, that had sustained year to year to year kind of continuity there. But if you look at his performance, his field goal percentage declined every single year since like 2018 or the late 2010s there. So you could tell something was wrong, something was off. He wasn't in the right groove. I mean, I think it was still in the mid 70s. So not great, but not like, we got to get rid of this guy. So I could very much see him looking at this opportunity here in Denver as a fresh start to get back to his the high levels that he's exuded early in his career. And I'm excited to watch. And
he mentioned too that it was so different coming back from fans because he had his 2020 season and he was like, there was no fan in attendance. Then he was dealing with injury. So he obviously wasn't playing with fans. And he said last year coming back and playing with fans, like it was just different. And isn't it funny how like as a fan, as somebody that watches this team, you don't ever think about what it's like to have that many people staring at you to do your job. And as a kicker, that's so much pressure right there.
It is. It's hard to grasp, I think,
the idea of it.
We always look at, because when you're at training camp or you watch practices, like the special teams unit, the specialist, the kicker, the punter, the long snapper, they have what appears to be like the easiest practices you could possibly imagine. Like if they're sweating, it's because it's 110 degrees outside. That's it. Their heart rates probably don't get up that high. But when they're called upon in game situations, particularly as a kicker, it is all on you right there. Yes, you have to have a snap, you have to have a hold, but even then, you are supposed to, as the kicker, overcome some of that and kick the ball through the uprights. So when you factor in going from no fans back to fans and the noise and the rumbling
as you're
and
dealing
the pressure,
and coming back from an injury.
Yes, and then the injury factor. Think about this. Like if you are a defensive lineman and you injure your hand or your foot, you just tape that sucker up and you have a paw and all that. If you're a kicker and you injure anything below the belt, what are you supposed to do?
Well, honestly, if you injure like they all have like their exact movements that they do. And if all of a sudden they can't do those
like
things.
Your shoulder is sore, so you don't have the mobility. So when you're winding up to make your kick, it's off by 2 degrees. Therefore, your hips aren't in position. Like it is way more scientific than it seems, and it involves that whole body. But it is crazy to think about, like when there's 100% injury rate in the NFL. Every player gets injured, throughout the course of the year and all that, every single year. But I feel like the other positions, wide receiver, defensive line, offensive line especially, I mean, you look at like Mark Schlereth or these guys' fingers, it is scary to look at the things that have happened to their hands and their extremities and things like that. But as a kicker, you have way less ability to kind of fudge and work with it because what you do is so like mechanically refined that it's tricky. You can't just brute strength it.
Yeah. And he had mentioned yesterday that he obviously got on a plane, arrived to Denver, wasn't sure what the plan was going to be yesterday. And he found out after getting 5 hours of sleep, oh, we're kicking today. And so he buckled up, like I said, did some pretty good kicks yesterday, everybody. Of course, no fans were in attendance or anything like that, but it was good to see him hit a few long ones out there. Somebody said, can Lutz hit a 64-yarder to win? Because we know McManus couldn't. It's going to be fascinating to watch with Brett Maher now being signed to the Rams. Brandon McManus obviously down there in Jacksonville. It's going to be so fascinating to see the comparison for all three of those kickers and see if Sean Payton got it right.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly he's had a look. He's had a look at his fair share, like you said.
Yes, he
so
has.
I do think, and I've heard others on our station echo this same sentiment. If Will Lutz does not perform at an above average level, there is going to be people lining up to criticize Sean Payton for letting go of Brandon McManus. And Brandon McManus, as the distance got further, things started to wane. But inside of that, like 40 to 49 yard range and below, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but my recollection is that he was still a pretty above average kicker from those distances. It was when it got above 50 plus that it started to wane. And that's probably a trend that you see with a lot of kickers. I haven't looked at Will Lutz's specifically. So to answer the question, can Will Lutz kick a 64-yarder to win? I believe at the NFL level, most, if not all, kickers have the leg strength to boot the ball 64 yards. But when you factor in the accuracy, the hash marks, all of those other external factors, I don't know. I hope we don't have to. I hope we don't have to find that out, because Sean Payton's offense is going to put us in a position to kick a much closer field goal in that situation.
And if we're just thinking positive thoughts, well, the Denver Broncos are going to win at least 10 games and have a successful season. Unlike some who think having a successful season will result in 7. You already admitted I was right last night on Twitter.
No. I admitted.
No. You admitted I was right.
Okay.
Because it is acceptable for them to win 7 because they will be moving up. It is not deemed successful for them to win 7 because that's not a successful season. And it's as simple as that, Richie.
Okay. Well, I did not admit you were right. You wordsmithed me.
Should I go into the... Let's just see.
Pull up the receipts. I ain't hard to find.
I love this.
You kind of wordsmithed me, and you said acceptable and successful are 2 different reasons. I said, okay, fair enough. I'll rephrase.
Is that not telling me I'm right? Fair enough.
No, I will rephrase, because that's not what I meant, but clearly it didn't come across the right way. What I rephrased was, I believe, given where this team has come from up until this past year and all the changes that have been made, an improvement of 2 wins, a 40% increase in the win column.
It's acceptable.
Is an acceptable definition of a successful season for this team in year 1 of the new regime. Year 1.
It's not successful. That is not successful.
What's the definition of success?
If you ask Sean Payton if that's successful, he's going to tell you no. Are you going to go against Sean Payton?
Sean?
It is not successful for this Denver Broncos team.
Sean Payton would call that
a failure.
Successful season, because he said he will be pissed if this is not a playoff team.
They have to win at least 10 games if they're lucky to be able to make it into the playoffs.
I feel like Sean Payton said that before he got a look at the roster.
Before he really took it.
And I feel like he wouldn't Sean Payton doesn't back down from anything, so I don't think he would walk back what he said, but I think he might more cleverly word it like I tried to do. I am going to go against Sean Payton.
You owe me an apology.
Sean Payton
Give it to me.
Is wrong. Rachel would rule this Broncos team with an iron fist, okay? Clearly. And I respect it, but I think I'm willing to concede in year 1 of a multi-year plan here with the Broncos that they don't double their win total.
No.
You just want to Khaleesi this whole team. If they don't win 10 games, just Dracarys, burn the whole thing down.
Okay, no, but I'm just saying that it's not successful if they do not win at least 10 games. Matt, our producer Matt on the back end, we need a third clearly. Is it successful for the Broncos to win just 7 games this season? Okay, so Matt says positive record.
So that would be winning more games than they lose? Man. I'm normally the cynical edge. Have I gone soft? Am I soft for saying that 7 wins and
yes,
and all
you are.
But does it not make it any better that I'm saying hey, it's only 7 wins in year 1, but they have all these positive signs that they're moving in the right direction? Because is their Super Bowl window 1 year? Do they have to make the playoffs and try to win a Super Bowl in 1 year?
But it's not successful. It is acceptable for them to continue to grow in Sean Payton's regime after 1 year. It is not successful.
Okay. All right. Listen.
Tell me I'm right.
Rachel, I apologize. I was wrong. Like Shaquille O'Neal and Devin Booker, I was not familiar with your game. Okay. You have successfully wordsmithed me out of this argument. I was too soft on this team.
Yep.
And if they don't win 11 games, I will riot.
Perfect. That's what I like to hear. Well, if we're setting expectations very high, looks like the NHL is setting them very high for the Colorado Avalanche. They're going to have 17 nationally televised games. 15 of those are going to be on ESPN and TNT, and then 2 of those are going to be on Prime. But the expectation is very high. When you get a lot of national games, you know that they're saying, hey, you better be a darn good team. And after the way, a darn good team. We were just talking about Australian accent. Could that be like a Irish accent? Darn good.
I think we can make it work. Yeah. If you just said it confidently, people would buy it.
Thank you. You have to be a darn good team to be able to get that many national games. And I don't know if I'm looking at this Avs team. People are going to be mad at me. I don't know if I'm looking at them as championship material. They have pieces, but do they have all of the pieces?
By your standard, a successful season for this Colorado Avalanche is that they not only win the Stanley Cup, but they sweep it the whole way through because darn it, they've got Jared Bednar, they've got Cale Makar on the cover of a video game. There is no other definition of success. No, I'm just kidding. But no, this is... Again, we talked about it when Cale Makar was on the cover of NHL 24. Mm-hmm. The Colorado Avalanche, by winning the Stanley Cup, have put themselves on the map nationally. They got recognition from the league. I would be stunned if you polled NHL players. The Athletic always does this with the NFL. Yes. They do like GMs, coaches, and execs and players all anonymous, and they talk about who's the best at all these different things. If you polled the players, coaches, execs, scouts at large, the Colorado Avalanche would get their flowers. Bednar, McKinnon, Makar, Landeskog, even though he's been hurt. I mean, I think this is a well-respected group. It is difficult to build a dynasty. And so the Avalanche winning it once is a momentous occasion in and of itself, but continuing that sustained success and continuing that lofty, sustained expectation of a championship year over year over year is very difficult. So yes, Rachel, if you were placing money on an outcome and it was they're going to win the championship or you'll take the field and anybody else could win it, obviously, the better bet would be that they wouldn't. Do I think that they still have a core capable of making a run and they have a head coach that is one of the better in the league, in my opinion? Yes. But I'm not going to fault you for saying you have concerns and frustrations about maybe how this team might perform, especially because you might sell the team if they don't.
Listen, last year was failure. Last year was a failure for the Colorado Avalanche. I feel very confident that if I went up to Nathan McKinnon and asked him that, he would say, hell yeah, it was
Nathan
a failure.
McKinnon's a cyborg. Yeah. Of course he would say
Nathan
that.
McKinnon and I have the same expectations for all the same teams in Denver, okay?
Rachel, we have
high expectations.
When I watch Nathan McKinnon skate, it is unlike any hockey thing I have ever seen in my life. It looks very different. And like McKinnon, when I hear you, when you sit across from me and go on an impassioned rant about standard expectations and excellence, it is unlike any I've ever seen. You are Nathan McKinnon.
Oh my God. Thank you. I'll take that as a huge compliment. Last season was a failure though. And I think for both the Avs and Nuggets, a championship is the only thing that can be deemed a success for this team because they have so many of the pieces. But do they have all the pieces? And that's a question that's going to loom over both of those teams, especially like for the Nuggets, they lost Bruce Brown. Good job for him. He got his big payday, but you have to be able to fill those roles. And he had played a big part in the Nuggets run, obviously, and it's going to haunt Avs fans for the rest of forever, it feels like. But Nazem Kadri for the Avalanche, that's going to haunt them because they were never able to replace him. And can they find those missing pieces again in the offseason? Training camp's going to ramp up here very, very soon. As tomorrow's the first day of September. I don't even know how that happened. But the expectation for the Avalanche and the Nuggets should both be championships, and anything less should be deemed a failure.
I don't on the surface, I really don't disagree with you because I agree. Last year did feel like a failure for the Avalanche. I mean, you were coming off as the defending champs, and then it was one thing when you struggled during the regular season because they'd built up that equity and that faith of like, hey, listen, it's an 82 game stretch. When it's playoff time, that switch will flip on. Well, playoff time came and the Seattle Kraken were here and that switch never flipped. They got worked in some of those games.
And it was because, too, I mean, if you look at their last couple of regular season games, they were working so hard. I mean, I just go back to the Nashville game and it was like coming down to the final couple of minutes and you're like, they're working so freaking hard in this game. And you have to have rest going into the playoffs a little bit for you to be able to make such a deep run. Hockey is such an intense sport overall. I don't know, man.
It just never looked easy. It just never looked easy for them last year.
The previous year, it looked so easy.
It was almost scary how effortless the Avalanche offensive onslaught that they would just punish teams with every year in shots. It was like they were gliding on air.
Yeah.
And it really was like this relentless. It became so commonplace for the Avs to double, if not triple or whatever, the shots on goal in any given period for whoever they were playing. And I can't imagine just like having to be on the other side of that and accepting those flurry of punches and shot after shot after shot after shot. And the next year, the following year, it just never looked like that. It looked like they were trying to do that, but they didn't have that extra gear. They didn't have that same lineup, confidence, comfortability, all of that.
Oh, I know. And well, the
doesn't mean they can't get it back.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, trust me, the season is a long season. Injuries always play a part of it and so many other things too. It's just making sure that they have the missing pieces. And I'm ready for that to get started. I can't believe football is going to be back so soon. And tomorrow, Richie is going to eat a very, very hot chip.
What? Okay.
He's going to, everybody, right here live on air. See if he can actually do it. I'm a terrible person with spice, but tomorrow I think Richie's going to try to do the show after eating something incredibly hot.
Well, I guess
we'll put you to the test on
I
this.
guess you better tune in. I'm finding out about this for the first time. So
I gotta keep him on his toes, ladies and gentlemen. As always, we love having you guys in the comments. We will see you guys tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Get back to work, everybody, and we will see you then. Bye.